Have you ever felt like certain family relationships are draining you emotionally? It's hard to admit, but sometimes even the closest ties can become a source of pain and toxicity. In this video, we're going to explore 12 powerful signs that will show you when it's time to cut off all contact, even if it's your own family. It's not an easy decision, but your well-being should be the priority. Stay until the end, because the last sign could surprise you and change your life forever. Constant toxic relationships are those in which negativity, conflict, and discomfort have become the norm, rather than the exception. These relationships can manifest in many ways, from constant criticism to subtle manipulation, and can include behaviors such as belittling, name-calling, hurtful sarcasm, or a lack of emotional support. Identifying these patterns requires an honest analysis of how you feel after interacting with these people. If you feel exhausted, anxious, depressed, or insecure after each encounter, it's a sign that the relationship may be affecting your mental well-being. Another indication of a toxic relationship is the repetition of unresolved cycles of conflict. Instead of working together to solve problems, the other person may dismiss your concerns, refuse to dialogue, or even blame you for the situation, creating an atmosphere of frustration and hopelessness. In addition, toxic relationships are often marked by a lack of mutual respect. You may feel like your opinions, wants, or needs are being ignored or ridiculed, or that the other person is constantly trying to impose themselves on you, which can undermine your self-esteem and self-confidence. It's also important to look at whether the relationship fosters codependency, where you feel responsible for the other person's happiness or emotional stability, often at the cost of your own well-being. This dynamic can trap you in a destructive cycle where you feel trapped, unable to pull away despite the damage it's causing you. Finally, pay attention to how the relationship affects your other connections and activities. If you find yourself isolated from friends, family, or hobbies you once enjoyed due to the other person's control or negative influence, you're likely in a toxic relationship that needs to be seriously reevaluated to protect your mental and emotional health. Emotional manipulation is a subtle but powerful tactic that can be especially harmful when it comes from family, people we should be able to trust at all times. This type of manipulation is characterized by the use of guilt, emotional blackmail, or victimhood to exert control over you. When someone in your family makes you feel guilty for making decisions that are important to your well-being, or that simply don't match their wishes, you're likely being emotionally manipulated. For example, they may make comments such as, "After all I've done for you," or "If you really loved me, you would do this for me," which puts the responsibility for their happiness or well-being in your hands. This is a way of distorting your perception, making you feel responsible for your emotions, which can lead you to act against your own interests or desires, simply to avoid feeling guilty. Another sign of emotional manipulation is when someone uses emotional blackmail to get what they want. This can manifest as threats to withdraw their affection, to cause further conflict, or even to harm themselves if you don't do what they ask. Not only is this type of behavior unfair, but it also creates an environment of constant tension and fear, where you feel forced to give in to keep the peace or protect the other person. Victimhood is also a common tool of emotional manipulation, in which the manipulator constantly positions themselves as the victim, no matter what the situation. By doing so, they avoid taking responsibility for their actions and make you feel like you have to compensate for their suffering or discomfort, even when you haven't done anything wrong. It's important to recognize that these patterns are unhealthy and can have a profound impact on your emotional well-being. Emotional manipulation in the family is especially difficult to deal with because family ties and social expectations can make you feel compelled to endure these behaviors. However, it is crucial that you set clear boundaries and protect your own emotional well-being, recognizing that you are not responsible for the emotions of others and that you should not allow guilt or emotional blackmail to control your decisions. Identifying and confronting emotional manipulation is an essential step toward creating healthier, more balanced relationships, where your feelings and needs are respected in equal measure. A lack of respect for your boundaries is a clear sign that a relationship, even with family members, may be harming your well-being and emotional health. Personal boundaries are essential to maintaining a healthy balance in any interaction, and when these are not respected, an imbalance occurs that can lead to frustration, resentment, and loss of identity. Your boundaries can encompass a wide range of aspects, from respecting your personal time and space to the way you want to be treated, or the topics you feel comfortable discussing. When someone in your family doesn't respect these boundaries, for example, by invading your privacy, making unreasonable demands on your time, or insisting on topics that you know make you uncomfortable, it's an indication that they don't value your needs or recognize your autonomy. This disrespect can manifest itself in subtle ways, such as ignoring your requests for personal space, or in more obvious ways, such as pressuring you to make decisions that go against your values or desires. Over time, this attitude can erode your sense of control over your own life, leading you to feel that your wants and needs are irrelevant or secondary compared to those of others. Also, when someone doesn't respect your boundaries, they often try to justify their behavior with excuses like, "I'm just trying to help you," or "I'm doing it for your good." These justifications can make you doubt yourself and question the validity of your own boundaries, which can be deeply confusing and harmful. It is important to understand that setting and maintaining clear boundaries is not selfish or wrong. On the contrary, it is an act of self-pity and self-respect. Boundaries not only protect your emotional and mental well-being, but they also define how you want others to interact with you. When your boundaries are repeatedly ignored or belittled, it's a sign that the other person isn't willing to acknowledge your right to have your own space and make decisions that are best for you. This is not only disrespectful, but also an attempt to exert control over you, which can lead to an unequal and harmful power dynamic. Instead of accepting this disrespect, it's essential to reaffirm your boundaries and let the other person know that their behavior is unacceptable. While this can be difficult, especially with family, it's critical to preserving your integrity and sense of identity. If after communicating your boundaries clearly, the other person still doesn't respect them, it may be necessary to reconsider the nature of that relationship and evaluate whether it's healthy for you to continue with it. Repeated disrespect for your boundaries indicates a deep disinterest in your well-being, and in the long run, it can have significant consequences for your self-esteem and peace of mind. That's why protecting your boundaries is a priority that shouldn't be sacrificed, regardless of who the person violating them is. Abusive or aggressive behavior is one of the most serious and harmful signs that can occur in any relationship, including the family. When aggression, whether verbal, emotional, or physical, becomes a pattern, it ceases to be an isolated behavior and becomes a destructive cycle that can have profound consequences for the victim. Verbal aggression includes insults, humiliation, constant criticism, and any other type of communication aimed at degrading or belittling the other person. This type of aggression is often disguised as honesty or joke, but its real goal is to undermine self-esteem and create a power dynamic in which the victim feels inferior or dependent. When these hurtful words are repeated over and over again, they can slowly undermine a person's confidence and dignity, making them feel that they deserve such mistreatment or that they are unable to defend themselves. Emotional aggression, on the other hand, is more subtle but just as damaging. It can manifest itself through control, manipulation, isolation, gaslighting, or indifference. In this type of abuse, the aggressor seeks to control the victim's emotions and perception, making them doubt themselves, their feelings, and their reality. For example, they may ignore your emotions, minimize your worries, or make you feel guilty about things that aren't in your control. Emotional aggression creates a toxic dependency, where the victim may feel trapped, not knowing how to get out of that situation, or even without recognizing that they are being abused, due to the confusion that the abuser sows in their mind. This type of abuse can also lead to social isolation, where the victim is separated from friends and loved ones who could offer support and an outside perspective on the situation. Physical aggression, while more obvious, is the culmination of a series of abusive behaviors that, if not stopped, can escalate quickly. This includes any type of unwanted physical contact, such as pushing, slapping, hitting, or any form of physical violence. It's a direct violation of personal safety, and a sign that the relationship has crossed an extremely dangerous boundary. Often, physical aggression is accompanied by threats or intimidation that seek to keep the victim in a constant state of fear and submission. Physical abuse not only leaves visible scars, but it also profoundly affects the psychological well-being of the victim, generating a cycle of trauma that can be difficult to break without outside help. The pattern of abuse, whether verbal, emotional, or physical, usually doesn't stop on its own. On the contrary, it tends to intensify over time if left unchallenged. The abuser may apologize or promise to change, but these promises are often empty, and the cycle of abuse continues, often with greater intensity. Recognizing this pattern and the severity of the situation is crucial to protecting yourself and taking steps to break the cycle. It's important to understand that you don't have a responsibility to fix or change the abuser, and that the priority should be your own safety and well-being. Getting out of an abusive relationship, especially when it involves a family member, is extremely difficult but not impossible. It is essential to seek outside support, whether through friends, counselors, or specialized help services. Abuse is not something you should endure or tolerate for the sake of the family, and breaking contact with the abuser may be necessary for your emotional and physical survival. The decision to walk away is not a sign of weakness, but of strength and self-love, and it is a crucial step toward recovery and creating a healthier, safer life. Disinterest in your well-being is an alarming sign, especially when it comes from people who should be concerned about your happiness and emotional health, such as your family. This disinterest manifests itself when you notice that there is no real interest in how you feel, in your dreams, or in what you need to be well. Instead of support and understanding, you receive indifference, or worse, an attitude that minimizes or ignores your concerns. Detecting this lack of genuine support can be difficult at first, especially if you're used to receiving little or no emotional attention in your home environment. However, there are certain behaviors that are clear indicators that concern for your well-being is not a priority for them. One of the clearest signs of disinterest is a lack of active listening. When you talk about your problems, goals, or emotions, and the other person responds with disdain, distraction, or changes of subject, it's an indication that they don't care about what's happening to you. This behavior can make you feel invisible or insignificant, as if your feelings and experiences have no value. In the long run, a lack of listening can erode your self-esteem and make you doubt the importance of your own needs. Another sign of disinterest in your well-being is the absence of support at crucial moments. If you're facing difficulties, challenges, or important decision moments and your family isn't there to help you, or even worse, they criticize your choices without offering constructive solutions, it's a clear sign that they're not interested in seeing you thrive. This kind of selflessness can lead you to feel alone, without a support system to rely on when you need it most. Disinterest can also manifest itself through a lack of celebration of your accomplishments. If you accomplish something important to you and your family's reaction is lukewarm or non-existent, they likely won't share your joy or understand the importance of your success. This type of response can discourage you, making you feel like your accomplishments aren't meaningful or worth the effort if you're not going to get recognition from the people who should be supporting you the most. In addition, the lack of interest in your well-being can be evidenced in the constant refusal to respect your life decisions. If you choose a path that makes you happy, but your family doesn't accept it or harshly criticizes it without considering what's best for you, it's a clear sign that their concern isn't focused on your happiness. This behavior can force you to choose between your well-being and family approval, creating unnecessary and painful tension. Finally, the lack of interest in your well-being is reflected in the inability to offer emotional support when you need it. We all go through difficult times, and in those moments, it's crucial to have someone who listens to us, offers comfort, and supports us without judgment. If your family can't provide that support, or makes you feel worse when you express your emotions, it's a clear sign that your well-being isn't at their top of the list. This lack of emotional support can be devastating, leaving you without the support you need to face life's challenges. Constant sabotage by a member of your family is a deeply troubling sign, and often difficult to spot, as it may be disguised as worry, advice, or even love. However, when someone in your family deliberately interferes with your personal growth, whether professionally, emotionally, or personally, a destructive pattern is being established that can prevent you from achieving your goals and realizing your potential. This type of behavior can manifest itself in multiple ways, from discouraging comments to actions that undermine your efforts to improve and progress in life. Identifying this sabotage is crucial to protecting your well-being and ensuring that you are surrounded by people who truly want the best for you. One of the most common forms of sabotage is through negative or demoralizing comments that undermine your self-confidence. For example, when you share a new project, a business idea, or an important life decision, and the response is critical, pessimistic, or discouraging with no constructive foundations, it is a sign that the person is not interested in supporting you, but in discouraging you. Phrases like, "That's never going to work," "Why bother?" or "You're not trained for that," are all attempts to sow doubt in you, limiting your view of what's possible. Over time, these types of comments can erode your self-confidence and make you feel less able to pursue your dreams and goals. Another way sabotage manifests itself is when a member of your family takes concrete actions to impede your progress. This can include, for example, a refusal to offer you the support needed to achieve your goals, such as not helping you when you need it, or even actively interfering with your plans. It could be that they go to great lengths to distract you from your studies, to discourage you from taking a new job that requires moving, or even to create conflicts that consume your time and energy, preventing you from focusing on what's important to you. These actions, while sometimes subtle, are indicative of an intention to keep yourself in a place where you are more manageable, or where you do not exceed their expectations or accomplishments. Sabotage can also arise through emotional manipulation, where a family member uses guilt or emotional blackmail to prevent you from moving forward. For example, they might make you feel responsible for their happiness or well-being, suggesting that by pursuing your own goals you're abandoning them or causing harm. This type of manipulation can be particularly powerful in family dynamics, where emotional bonds are strong and the desire not to let the family down runs deep. However, it's important to recognize that your personal growth shouldn't be limited by expectations or needs imposed by others, especially when those expectations are designed to keep you in a state of dependency or stagnation. In addition, sabotage can manifest itself in the form of unfair competition within the family. In some families, especially those where the dynamic is competitive, one member may feel the need to sabotage another in order to maintain their own status or to avoid feeling overshadowed. This can translate into attempts to make you look bad in front of others, to appropriate your ideas or achievements, or to belittle your successes so that they seem insignificant. Not only is this competition harmful, but it also creates a toxic environment where one person's growth is perceived as a threat to others, rather than a shared victory. Competition and envy within the family are profoundly destructive dynamics that can cause significant damage to both family relationships and the emotional well-being of those who experience them. Unlike healthy competition, which can motivate people to excel and achieve their goals, destructive competition and envy are driven by insecurity, resentment, and a desire to outdo or bring down the other, rather than coming together in support of each other. These attitudes, when rooted in the family, can erode the bonds that should be a source of love, support, and security, transforming them into an emotional battleground. Destructive competition within the family often arises when one or more members feel that their personal worth depends on their superiority over others. Instead of celebrating the accomplishments of their loved ones, they feel like they must compete to stand out, which can lead to a number of toxic behaviors. These behaviors include belittling the accomplishments of others, constantly trying to outdo them in any aspect of life, or even sabotaging their efforts to ensure that they cannot excel. Not only does this type of competition lead to tensions and conflict, but it can also lead to a cycle of resentment, where one's accomplishments are perceived as a threat rather than a reason to celebrate. Envy, on the other hand, is a corrosive emotion that manifests itself when one member of the family desires what another has, whether it is success, recognition, talent, or simply happiness. Instead of rejoicing in the other's well-being, the envious person feels bitterness and resentment, and may act passive-aggressively or even directly to undermine the other's happiness. This type of envy can cause people to try to devalue the achievements of others, spread rumors, or minimize the importance of family successes to feel better about themselves. Instead of strengthening family ties, envy breaks them down, creating an atmosphere of distrust and rivalry. Destructive competition and envy can also profoundly affect the self-esteem and emotional security of individuals within the family. When someone constantly feels compared to other family members or perceives that their achievements are always overshadowed by those of others, they may develop feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, and low self-esteem. Instead of seeing yourself as a person with your own intrinsic value, you begin to measure your success based on how you compare to others. This distorted perspective can lead to an insatiable search for external validation, where personal success is never enough, as there is always someone else who seems to be doing something better. The presence of destructive competition and envy can also have a lasting impact on family relationships. Instead of being a source of support and comfort, the family becomes a place of judgment and rivalry, where interactions are tinged with suspicion and resentment. Conversations that should be about sharing and enjoying each other's company become occasions to measure achievements and compare each other, which poisons the relationship with a constant sense of competition. Over time, these dynamics can cause family relationships to deteriorate, leading to alienation, emotional distance, and in some cases, the complete breakdown of family ties. Recognizing and addressing destructive competition and envy within the family is a crucial step in restoring harmony and emotional health. It is important to foster an environment where the achievements of each member of the family are celebrated, not as a threat to others, but as a source of shared pride. This requires a change in mindset, where each member feels secure in their own worth and success, without the need to constantly compare themselves to others. Promoting open and honest communication, where feelings of envy or competition can be discussed without judgment, is also essential to dismantling these destructive dynamics. One-sided relationships are those in which effort, energy, and commitment mostly come from a single person, while the other party barely invests or contributes to the relationship. This imbalance is particularly painful in the family context, where support and affection are expected to be mutual and reciprocal. When you find yourself in a family relationship where you consistently give more than you get, it's a clear indication that the relationship is one-sided. Not only is this type of dynamic exhausting, but it can also profoundly affect your emotional well-being and your perception of the value you have within the family. One of the most obvious signs of a one-sided relationship is a lack of reciprocity in emotional support. You may find yourself in situations where you're always available to listen, comfort, and help the other person. But when you need that same kind of support, the other party is absent, disinterested, or simply doesn't bother to respond in kind. This repeated pattern of giving without receiving can make you feel devalued and unimportant, as if your needs aren't a priority for the other person. Over time, this lack of reciprocity can lead to emotional burnout, where you feel like you're constantly emptying yourself into the relationship without being recharged at all. Another manifestation of a one-sided relationship is when all efforts to maintain contact or plan encounters fall on you. It's you who always calls, who sends messages, who organizes family gatherings, or who makes plans to see each other. If you don't take the initiative, the relationship cools down or disappears entirely because the other person shows no interest in keeping the connection alive. This type of situation is frustrating and discouraging, as it suggests that the relationship only exists because you maintain it, which raises serious questions about the commitment and affection of the other party. Instead of feeling loved or valued, you're left with a sense of being the only one who truly cares about the relationship. Also, in one-sided relationships, it's common for only you to make sacrifices and adjustments to accommodate the other person's needs. You may notice that it's always you who adapts to the other party's schedules, preferences, and desires, while they rarely make the same effort for you. This imbalance in the willingness to compromise and adjust to each other's needs is a clear sign that the relationship is not equitable. In the long run, this can lead to a feeling of resentment and frustration, as you realize that your well-being and desires are continually relegated to the background. When core life values are in conflict within a family, it poses a deep and painful challenge, as these values are the foundation on which we build our beliefs, decisions, and life perspectives. Values are those deep convictions that guide our actions and our worldview. And when they clash with the values of other family members, especially on fundamental issues such as ethics, religion, politics, or lifestyle, it can generate insurmountable tensions. Differences in values can manifest themselves in many ways, from disagreements over how to raise children to conflicts over important life decisions. and can cause a significant rift in family relationships if not addressed carefully. One of the first steps in confronting irreconcilable differences in values is to recognize that even if you share blood ties with your family, you are not obligated to share the same beliefs or principles. Accepting that these differences exist is crucial to begin to manage the situation. It's important that you take the time to reflect on your own values, to understand where they come from and why they're so important to you. This process of introspection will help you become more confident in your position and communicate your convictions clearly and respectfully when necessary. However, it's also essential to be prepared for the possibility that others may not share or understand your values, and that this can lead to emotional distancing. Confronting differences in family values requires a delicate balance between maintaining your integrity and trying to preserve the relationship, if possible. In some situations, it can be helpful to have open and honest conversations with your family members to try to better understand their views and explain yours. These discussions should be handled with care, as touching on fundamental aspects of people's lives can stir up intense emotions. It's crucial to approach these conversations from a place of respect and empathy, recognizing that differences don't necessarily mean that one side is right and the other is wrong, but simply that they have distinct perspectives based on their experiences and beliefs. Social isolation is one of the most troubling and subtle signs of a controlling or toxic family relationship. When a family tries to isolate you from other healthy relationships, whether it's friendships, romantic partners, or even colleagues, they're directly interfering with your ability to maintain a balanced, autonomous social life. This type of isolation can be extremely harmful, as it deprives you of the external support needed to have an objective perspective on your life and decisions. Instead of allowing you to develop a diverse and nurturing support network, family can create a closed and restrictive environment that limits your personal growth and leaves you emotionally dependent on them. Social isolation can begin in a very subtle, almost imperceptible way. At first, family members may make derogatory comments about your friends or relationships, suggesting that they're not good influences or that they don't really understand who you are. These comments can be difficult to recognize as problematic, as they are often presented as genuine concerns. However, the underlying goal is to sow doubt in your mind about people outside the family, which eventually leads you to distance yourself from them. This type of emotional manipulation can make you feel guilty for maintaining your external relationships, as if you are betraying your family by spending time with others. Over time, the pressure to limit your social interactions can increase. Family members may begin to demand more of your time, justifying these demands with seemingly valid reasons, such as the need to maintain family unity or the importance of solving problems within the family. This can lead you to cancel plans with friends or turn down social invitations, all under the guise of fulfilling your family duties. Although it may seem like you're making decisions for yourself, you're actually being manipulated into prioritizing the needs and desires of the family over your own relationships and well-being. In more extreme situations, a family may resort to more direct control tactics to isolate you from other relationships. This can include behaviors like making you feel guilty for enjoying time outside of the family circle, constantly monitoring or criticizing your interactions with outsiders, or even imposing rules about who you can and can't spend time with. This kind of control can be so suffocating that you eventually stop trying to connect with people outside of the family, as every attempt seems to result in conflict, guilt, or disapproval. Constant criticism or disapproval from the family can cause you to question your own decisions and feel unable to maintain healthy relationships outside of this restrictive circle. Social isolation can also manifest itself through direct sabotage of your relationships. For example, family members may intervene in your friendships or romantic relationships, sowing discord or misunderstandings that eventually lead to breakups or estrangement. They may talk badly about your friends or partner behind their backs, or even manipulate situations to make it seem like those others don't care about you or don't understand you like the family does. Not only do these tactics damage your external relationships, but they also reinforce the idea that you can only fully trust your family, fueling a cycle of dependency and isolation. The impact of social isolation can be devastating. As you withdraw from your friends and other important people in your life, you become more dependent on family for emotional support, which only reinforces their grip on you. This isolation can also affect your self-esteem, making you feel like you have no one else to turn to and that you're not worthy of healthy relationships outside of the family circle. Over time, this dependence can cause you to feel trapped, without the ability to escape or find comfort in other people, perpetuating a cycle of loneliness and control. It's crucial to recognize the signs of social isolation and understand that healthy relationships, both within and outside the family, should allow you to have a diverse and robust support network. If you realize that your family is constantly limiting your social interactions, it's vital that you seek outside help and reevaluate the family dynamics. Maintaining and nurturing relationships outside of the family is essential for your emotional well-being and for having a balanced perspective on your life. While it can be difficult to break the cycle of isolation, it's critical to your personal growth and building a life where you feel free and supported, not controlled and isolated. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content on how to improve your quality of life. See you in the next video.